And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have a magnificent guest with us tonight, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than a frontline soldier, an activist, a believer, a student in the ministry, a family man, and so much more. None other than our brother, Minister Dawud Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
This means a lot to myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast that you would take time out of your busy schedule to come and have a conversation with us. The first thing that we want to go discuss today is this past weekend was, of course, the 4th of July, and representing the independence of our nation and of the coming of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, making himself known. Why do you think that's important for us to know, sir, in 2025, for us to still celebrate and uplift the name Master Farrakhan Muhammad?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, but most importantly, because of where our focus should be, not simply on that day, but that day should be a reminder of where our focus should be most often. Master Farrakhan Muhammad came, as we're taught, alone,
Yes, sir.
seeking our people. And seeking, he studied people throughout the world. He studied situations throughout the world. Um, you know, I guess I could put it like this. He was looking for the one student. He knew where he was, and he knew he had to set up circumstances that a student would encounter him.
Mm.
He also had to know that the student had made a journey from the South to the North in Detroit. And he had to know that that student came out of certain conditions, arrived into certain conditions, all of which would be the ideal time to engage his student. And so when we say he came in the person to seek that which is lost,
Yes,
if
sir.
you look at our present condition, particularly in Detroit, you'll see we're lost.
Mm, mm, mm.
um, so I think it's significant because rather than a day of protest or a day where we feel rejected by uh, whites, and particularly under this political environment we're in now, it's a day we can celebrate. Now, remember when Master Muhammad declared our independence on that day, remember we're talking about the 1930s.
Yes, sir.
What our people was facing was something. Is a man saying you're independent? Well, he didn't point us to a landmass. He didn't point us to a geographic location.
Yes, sir.
Going after the mind of the black man and woman. And so I think that's significant. I also think it's significant enough that I was telling my wife the other day that every year I used to, on the 4th of July or around that time, I would begin my lecture with reading from This Is the One, not the first edition, but the second edition or the latter edition that Brother Jabril published, where he added additional notes and information. But his description of how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad encountered his teacher, Master Farrakhan Muhammad, it's so beautifully written. And
Yes, sir.
everybody thought it was on the 4th of July that he encountered his teacher. No, he didn't encounter his teacher till September. But what happened on the 4th of July was that after Master Farrakhan Muhammad was teaching in different people's homes, setting up study groups, he would go and have silk and say, "This is like the silk your people wore in their own country." Now,
Yes,
people,
sir.
you living in Black Bottom, Detroit, my people, my own country. This is my country. I'm from America.
Yes,
And
sir.
he would smile and say no, and then he would begin to tell them about being this original family, coming from royal lineage, wearing robes and being civilized and having and developing civilization. And people would be so excited, they would ask, well, and he would tell them, you know, I'd be more than happy to come back and teach you and some of your friends. And he teach people in their living rooms all over parts of Detroit and in Black Bottom in particular. Well, after a while, it started getting very crowded in those places.
Mm.
But Master Father Muhammad, being a master, he created in them a desire for more. So at some point, somebody said, well, it's not enough room. We need to get us a bigger place.
Mm.
And so they start arranging for this meeting. There are cells, CELLS. Each didn't know about the other.
Yes, sir.
Can you imagine on July 4th, they having this meeting and you got all these believers who had been taught by the master separately in their individual cells, but now they come collectively together in a meeting place. So I think that that's significant, and that for him to declare basically that our minds are to be freed.
Yes,
I,
sir.
I think it was a great musician, intellectual, composer, George Clinton, who said, free your mind and your behind will follow. And so, but he freed our minds because he saw us behind civilization. And
Yes,
this was
sir.
after our people had fallen into a painful depression of not having a vacuum in leadership. Marcus Mosiah Garvey's movement crippled. Noble Drew Ali's movement gone, and so you have this vacuum, but you have this desire in our people, and here we are. So I could go on about that, but that's kind of what comes to mind when you ask that question. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. You answered. All praise due to Allah. Thank you, sir. And people are showing you love all around the world. Walaikum
Praise
salam,
be.
brother Daniel E. Our brother out of Flint, Michigan, 147 Savage. Thank you for always showing love. Walaikum salam, sister Naima. Just us. Walaikum salam, praise be to Allah. Brother Javon Lewis says, peace, God. Peace to Javon Lewis. And thank you, everybody who was watching. We also wanted to know, sir, you have been in the Nation of Islam for decades now, and it is 2025, and by the grace of Allah, we are still bearing witness that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. What advice would you give to the younger generations, as well as the current, but primarily the younger generations, about maintaining and holding on to faith?
I think the important thing is that they study, but there's a passage in the Bible that talks about study to show thyself approved.
Yes, sir.
By who? Almighty God.
That's right.
Study,
That's right.
but I mean, you'll impress people if you study these teachings, but study for yourself. And so that you can grow in faith. Because there's going to come challenges in life where you might find out that there is a shortfall in the spiritual cash flow where the faith has not developed.
Yes, sir.
You'll be real good at debating, and I've always said you can win a debate but still not really have firm belief. You just satisfied your ego to silence somebody else because you could debate better than them. But if the debate isn't won in here in our heads, then it's a exercise in ego, but not a closer walk with Almighty God. So and then be patient, understand that things are not going to change overnight. And I would also say it's extremely valuable that we understand there should be a continuity in our movement in the Nation of Islam, and that nobody just popped up. All of us are standing on someone else's shoulders. Let's not make the minister an idol. Understand he's the template for the resurrection of our people and humanity. Yes, you don't idolize him in that sense. You identify how Allah is using him as that messianic figure to guide us to a greater future. Well, that you can get into how much you love his smile, how his hair look, and what his suits look like, but we better get on the inside of that reality. I remember I arrived at a laborers conference in Chicago, and my luggage didn't come with me, so the casual dress I had on is how I had to go to the laborers conference. And I remember we were at the Salam restaurant, and the minister walked through the entire restaurant greeting us at each table. And I apologized to the minister. I'm sorry, my luggage didn't come, so I had to keep this outfit on. The minister said, "Oh, brother, It's not the suit that makes the man, it's the man that makes the suit. And of course, we get caught up in suit makers
Yes,
instead of
sir.
God makers,
Mm,
So the
mm.
young brothers and sisters, attach yourself to multiple generations because different believers have different experiences. One of the most moving experiences I had is sitting still alone in a room reading a book. But it was a book by a brother who, at Savior's Day in Chicago, was moving around in his little scooter. And he said, Brother Dawud, I wrote a book, man. Come on and get my book.
Yes, sir.
That book he wrote about his experience as a minister, as a helper to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and as a brother working out things in Atlanta, down in the southern region. I don't know if believers have read his book, but they should.
Yes,
It is
sir.
a beautiful book, and it was deeply moving to me. And I thank Allah I had the opportunity the following year or two to encounter Abdul Rahman, may Allah be pleased with him, and thank him for that wonderful book. We need those kind of experiences as young believers so that there's balance. You bring something to mind, I just got to share. This is when, before Amazon took over and all the bookstores, the big ones, start closing down.
Yes, sir.
A lot of us used to go to places like Borders and Barnes and Nobles because you get coffee, you could read books for free and or buy them if you wanted to. So I'm at this Borders Books. I walk in, a lot of people are standing in line. I just happen to be in proximity to the entrance.
Yes, sir.
There's an elderly white man who burst through the entrance and he was like really angry, a little short white man. And he walked up to this young white guy, went right up to him in his face and said, "Hey, I was just walking across the parking lot and you almost hit me with your car. You need to slow down. What's wrong with you?" And everybody was quiet. And I saw this shame go over the young white boy's face. He couldn't even talk and his head went down. What struck me about that is he had enough respect for that elder that he didn't clap back, he didn't curse him out, he didn't beat him down, he didn't make a world star video. He took it respectfully. Sometimes young believers, if you gonna get older believers who might bend your ear and but they've been around years. What might tick them off might be very important if you understood contextually their expectation for you as they're looking at you as the future generation. So
Yes, sir.
I think that our young people need to just slow it down a bit with your ears. Don't slow your feet down. Keep moving the papers, keep fishing, but slow your ears down. Slow your eyes down so you can see people around you. Don't be blind to the wonderful gifts of elder brothers and sisters who have been in this movement for years and have sacrificed so much so that you could do what you do. So I would say that would be some of the advice I would give.
All praises due to Allah. Excellent. And on that point right there, sir, we want to let you know that you are respected, honored, and appreciated. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we salute you, Brother Minister, and we salute your family as well. We thank Allah for all of you, the many sacrifices that you all have done as a family. You specifically, before labor, after labor, still laboring. We thank Allah for you so that we can drill and sell bean pies and say Assalamu alaikum and the Shadu Allah, Illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. We would not be able to do so if it was not for believers like yourself being frontline soldiers. So we thank Allah for you, sir.
All praises due to Allah. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Well, the name Dawood.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. How did that come about, sir?
Well, we were, this is an interesting time because we were in transition. Brother Rasul Muhammad,
Yes, sir.
my dear brother, who I assisted for many years, he had come to Detroit, sent by the minister, soldiered here, really brought Mosque Number One back up where people knew who we were, and he was a known entity in the city of Detroit. Well, the minister had a new assignment for him down in Florida, in Miami, ultimately the 7th region, him setting that up. So the transition was he came to town to share with the believers what was happening with Brother Rasul. He was newly married. There were challenges some of the sisters had with who his choice was in marriage. And minister had to go into the history of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taking his family down to Mexico and how the children grew up in a cultural dynamic and where their inclinations were based upon those cultural dynamics. And it was a very beautiful meeting. But in that same meeting, he brought myself and my former wife up on stage. He said what he was told concerning ourselves. Believers acknowledged or bore witness to what they thought was the truth about myself. And then he said, well, young man, you got so and so many months to prove yourself. And so we were working, this was 95, so we were working on the Million Man March and pushing in our cities to encourage people to come to DC. So my whole thing was, you know, Rasul had given me so much latitude and showed me the ropes. He made me sit in meetings that were laborers meetings and so on, because he never intended to just stay in Detroit. His whole goal was to come here, help get Detroit up, put somebody in place, and then move on with his next.
Okay, okay.
He's driven like that. And so he always made sure I learned all of the ins and outs of administrating. He told me that, you know, being a minister is not performance. He meant that in the entertainment sense. This is not a stage. You don't get out there and entertain and people clap and you done did something. He said being a minister is administration and management. That's what he taught me. I thank Allah for that, brother. So I jammed. Rasul went on down to Miami to build in Miami. And I'm out in the streets in Detroit doing whatever's necessary to get people interested in the Million Man March. Then the minister was coming back to Detroit. I believe that was September of 1995. We were at New Bethel Baptist Church, which was the church that was led by Aretha Franklin's father, C.L. Franklin. Of course, he was deceased by then. Another gentleman was the pastor at the time. But that's the location we used to host the minister and bring the public in to push the Million Man March. And so we packed it out. The minister said, how many flyers did you all put out in the streets, son? I think it was that venue that he said that. I said, I think 15 to 20,000. He said, how many does the church seat? I said, approximately 5,000, something like that, 45,000. He said, are you trying to start a riot, son? I said, yes, sir. We packed the place. The walls were vibrating and the minister taught beautifully and hard. But he came out, and before he began to teach, he acknowledged myself. And he said, a brother who does work like this, we can't just call you David X. From this day forward, you'll be known as Dawud Muhammad. He did that at New Bethel Baptist Church. The thing I was probably most thankful for, very humbled by the name, I didn't really see myself even worthy of that. I really didn't. By Allah's grace, I still have to look at myself and remember what I should be doing. But I was thankful because my mother was present.
Hey.
Let me tell you something. My mother never joined the nation. She never recited, but she loved her son. She respected what I did. And when she heard him call me Dawud, from that day forward, she called me Dawud. She never mocked it, was not offended by it, and she was thankful. I thank Allah.
Excellent. Okay, praise be to Allah. And Brother Minister, may we have your mother's name, sir?
Her name was Dorothy Jean Faison. Then she got remarried. It was Dorothy Jean Redmond. She's a preacher in her own right. Later, in latter years, she even got ordained. We used to have some wonderful debates, my mom and I. She's deceased now. I thank Allah for him.
Praise be to Allah. Beautiful, bro. Man, so we're gonna stay right there. We got so many people showing you love from around the world. Thank you all very much. Brother Musa holding it down. Alaikum salam, family. Also, the blessed Muhammad Mas #1. All praise to Allah. He still misses they still miss your restaurant. Had some of the best food ever. Detroit, we went to the Lighthouse store on number 7 near Southfield. Thank you very much. People sending you love. And walaikum salam, sir. Muhammad, Motown Zone student minister, David Muhammad Muslim. People just bearing witness.
Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. So I want to stay right there in the ministry. There are many people who see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as well as others teaching. And whether you're in the nation or out the nation, you've seen Malcolm X movie, seen Dr. Martin Luther King, you see people preaching, and they want to go, they want that. They want to be a leader. They want to help our people in some way, shape, or form or fashion. What advice would you give to those who would like to follow in the footsteps in the ministry, but just as being an activist or a leader in any shape or form? What advice would you give, sir?
You gotta love our people.
Mm.
That's fundamental and primary. You must love our people. The minister told me one day, I went to him with my personal problems and all of what I was struggling with. He wouldn't even let me get it all out. He saw I was burdened with whatever my life was suffering at the time. I had my own hands mostly, but he said something very beautiful, and you've probably heard him say it publicly, but I remember him saying it to me directly. He said, son, Master Rasul Muhammad knew the depth of our sin and depravity before he arrived here in America. And he did not come here to condemn us. He came to save us. You ain't about no activism and working in the community if you're not desirous of saving a people who are drowning in their own sin and depravity. You just talking. Some people, be fronting because they just like the camera light. They go and buy them a pair of glasses so they can look like Malcolm, those glasses that he wore, horn rim glasses and all that. They get a little skinny tie. They take pictures. They get a carbine and pose in the window. Stop playing. You want to imitate the minister's speaking style and, you want to have security around you. Stop playing. If you really, really want to do this work and be an activist, you got to love our people. Now, what happens with love? When love is activated, oh man, you can get some things done.
Yes, sir.
Love our people. Not love their ignorance, not love their stupidity, not love the depravity, but love the person that's covered up in that. Love them enough to help get them clean and get that off of them as you're getting it off yourself. And you won't love our people if you don't have a proper balanced view of self. The minister told me one day, Dawud, if you give up on yourself, you give up on your people. So you got to do some good personal maintenance, and then you can spread that love to your people in the community. The study, the history, all that, yeah, do all of that, but none of that stuff really means much if you don't love the Black man and woman, and if you don't have love for the original family throughout the year.
Teaching, bro, man, all praise due to Allah. Yes, sir. And people bear witness. Thank you all, brother. Demerick is watching out of Oklahoma City, and brother Ricard says, all praise due to Allah. We love brother Dawud. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody who's watching. Please let us know what city you are watching from. Our next question for you, sir, is you've been around the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for years. We want to know what did you witness? How did you witness him handle politicians and the politics of the city, so that others that we can learn how do we handle politics? Because you had to handle it in Detroit and throughout the Midwest, the Central region. But how did you observe the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan handle politicians?
That's a very good question. He never went after them personally if they were his critics. He would address their concerns. And if there was a public forum where, maybe something hit a headline and he addressed it, he never went the cheap route. start talking about the person. He would only address what the person said and show that that person most likely had poor, if any, information that was accurate at all. Oftentimes it wasn't even accurate. I mean, before Trump was running around talking about fake news, those of us in the Nation of Islam, we know what fake news is. And it is real fake. Now, that's one part. The other part is I watch him interact with elected officials, and he always respected what they were shouldering in the way of responsibility to serve those who elected him. For instance, we were in the office of Dennis Archer. He was the mayor of Detroit at the time. And we were talking with him, engaging him. Well, really, the minister and him was talking. We were all standing to the side, being quiet. But the minister, at a certain point, the photographer comes in and he's taking pictures. And Dennis Archer told the minister, "Oh, you can sit behind my desk." The minister said, "Oh, no, sir." He said, "No, no, Minister Farrakhan, go on, sit behind the desk." The minister said, "Oh, no, sir. With the weight of what you have to carry in that office, no, sir, I respectfully." And then he had to come in. Well, it's something we do, Minister. There are others who sat there. And he almost had to like plead with the minister. Minister finally agreed to sit at the desk, and the pictures were taken. But he always showed me to be respectful of people in what they were doing. If they did something wrong, correct the wrong, but don't go after the person. We have to be careful with that. We have to make that distinction. I was sitting with him in his suite. He was here to speak in Detroit, and this was around the time they were lying about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Yes, sir.
George W. Bush was planning a war, and the minister was coming to inform the people and warn, as he does, our divine warner. That man has been all over the country warning people about what's coming. So we were sitting and watching this was either the Senate or the Congress debating. And there was a man who was giving this impassioned plea about not going to war and his own son in the military. I made some smart remark like, "Yeah, he's a good actor." The minister said, "That man isn't acting, son. He's serious." I said, "Yes, sir." And I started paying closer attention. If we're not careful when we're immature, well, we know who the devil is, or whatever. No, that's not how he operates. We have to be more mature in our grasp of this guidance. So what I've seen him do with elected officials and politicians is handle them with skill, mindful of where they serve, but more importantly, as he's trying to get to our people, he doesn't want anything obstructing that goal. And if they can assist him in what he's doing to get our people, then he wins a friend and he gets things done. He knows how to get into that rusty lock of a politician, oil the lock, and release something to the benefit of the bigger goal. Lastly, there is no price that they can say the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has.
Yes, sir.
You can't buy the FOI, you can't buy the MGT, and you definitely cannot buy Farrakhan or those who help him. And so when politicians know they don't have a price, we don't owe politicians, but they always somehow end up owing us because of the work we do. That's what I'm from the Honorable Minister as far.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent. People will bear witness and showing you love. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Walaikum salam, Sister Miriam. Thank you, everybody who continues to show love. We wanted to ask you, sir, the crime rate around the country, around the world, but primarily in major cities and urban cities. Detroit is one of those cities where people seem to focus a lot on the crime. The mothers are crying out. A lot of the women are crying out, saying, "What do we do with the sons and the next generation?" What advice do you give to people who are looking for hope and just inspiration in the inner cities?
Well, you'll hear politicians say, and you'll hear the law enforcement officials usually like the police chief, they'll say things, and it's true for Detroit and some of the other major cities. They say the homicide rate and all of that is going down. But being that you're not a statistician or you're not in front of a computer and you don't have documents, but what you do have is 5 locks on your front door. You hear gunshots at night. You're like, okay, it's going down, but I ain't seen it yet. The
Yes, sir.
reality is our people suffer for a lack of knowledge.
Mm, mm.
And our fundamental responsibility, we talked about how you got to love our people. Well, that love should generate in us a desire to awaken in them what has been awakened in us. We cannot react to things. The reaction, let me say this. Once Master Farrakhan Muhammad came, it means that all of the statistics we're looking at were identified already.
Yes, sir.
But Detroit has fallen back into the same state, free from rejection. Our rebellion and rejection. I didn't say the lost files. You stop playing. No, when we look at it, because of our own rebellion or slackness and forgetting focus on the mission, that's why we're looking at what we look at right now.
Mm.
So when you go pick up your supreme wisdom and you look up things like eating the wrong food, well, and why does he fear now that he's a big man? Because he taught me,
Yes, sir.
wrong
Yes, sir.
when he was a little boy. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you go in any store, what food are we feeding on? Physical food. Everybody ain't vegetarian or eating to live here. You still see folk in Detroit, just like you do down in Atlanta with an old industrial barrel that they done made into a barbecue pit. Some
Yes, sir.
stuff, our people lack knowledge. And then you have a whole generation of young people who basically have raised themselves. I was thinking the other day about during COVID, how significant that was because it made everybody go home. And their fundamental outlet was their phones or their laptops or their computers. And so folk were doing a lot of scrolling and social streaming and all that stuff, but they were getting further and further away from another human being. You ever notice there are things that people will say online that they would never say in somebody's face? Because psychologically, you got somebody who can hear, but not necessarily see you. It's like these internet serves as an electronic mask. You ever notice when I was younger, if you put on a Halloween mask, you took on the persona of what you were wearing.
Yes, sir.
Behind people didn't even know who you were. And you could just say just all kinds of stuff and growl and holler and shout, scream, whatever. Well, now people have been so disconnected. Folks sitting at the dinner table, 5 folk at the table and 6 phones at the table. And everybody got problems with the vertebrae in their neck because they're holding their head down too long and
Yes,
putting
sir.
strain on that vertebrae, which is not supposed to be at that angle for hours. And so you got a disconnect. And so we have to reconnect. Selling papers on the corner is fine, but you really want to do something exploratory and profound, go knock on the door. Try that
Yes,
out.
sir.
Go try that out. It's really surprising what's on the other side of a door.
Yes, sir.
On the street corner, you get the paper sold and people will recognize you. So that's like a billboard. But what's going to be like the door hanger? That's when you got to knock on the door. You know those door hangers they put on the door to advertise?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You got to even get closer than that. You got to be like the television. You got to be a human face, flesh and blood face. We're afraid to look at each other because we have become so savage that if you stare too long, somebody might think you fronting them off.
Yes, sir.
Threaten them. So we have to reclaim our humanity and we have to fight to get it back and not be afraid to go and encourage our people and embrace them that they might embrace their humanity.
Praise be to God. Beautiful teaching, bro, minister. People are bearing witness all around the world. Thank you very much, ASA from A4X. Thank you, whoever that is. Thank you, St. Louis and Kansas City, and everybody who's showing love. Thank you all very much. Great
And
teaching.
St. Louis partly grew me up. I
Mm.
was a student at Lincoln University in 1981, February of 1981. I think it was February 19th, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke at the college I went to, Lincoln University. He
Mm.
told us, I was blown. That was like, I know where I want to go that day. And so I would go up to St. Louis. At that time, Brother Akbar, the international representative,
Yes, sir.
well, he was the minister's assistant, but he was the minister at Muhammad's Mosque. What is that, 28B? Whatever the number is, it's B because they were in East St. Louis.
Yes, sir. 28.
Locations in both East St. Louis and St. Louis. But back then, the mosque was primarily in East St. Louis, and Brother Akbar was the minister. I brought him up to Lincoln to speak a few times and so on. But so St. Louis, shout out to y'all. I love Brother Donald, took care of me. Brother Akbar took care of me. Brother Ralph over in East St. Louis and Sister Pamela took care of me. I love my St. Louis peoples.
All praise to God. Yes, sir. And shout out to everybody holding down in St. Louis. And I grew up with Brother Ralph's son. And
And you know, I remember him when he's a little boy walking around Savior's Day with his camera.
Yes, sir. So shout out to St. Louis and the St. Louis believers. Okay, yes. The next question we have for you is uh, the poor, and this it can take a toll on our people when you got to go in the community and you see poverty and you see things of this nature. Being in Detroit and seeing Honorable Miss Louis Farrakhan come in and out, how do we keep our spirit up, working with working in these conditions, but still keeping faith, not losing hope this is a day-to-day grind in those in the environment.
Well, talk about the poor, you was talking about me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
I was
sir.
never a person with great wealth, mind you. Thank my wife, Sister Tisha. She like made the hook up here, so we look kind of wealthy. You see the little gold edge on my glass there. Couldn't drink out the paper cup. Let me stop joking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Great material means, I'm blessed to have some things by Allah's grace, but the way we keep our heads up is always think about who you're looking at, not what they're wearing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, not where they're living. Their house is telling you what's going on in their head. So if you see impoverishment, know that there may be poverty here too. Well, bring them the wealth of knowledge. Be kind. Again, you got to love our people. If you give people one thread of something good, you've given them plenty.
Yes, sir.
Just care enough about them. I remember I went to see this great vocalist. I think she was out of Senegal. I think her name was Mariam Marasal. And she was a griot, so she could sing her people's history. Some of these people, I think she knew like 700 years of history or something, but they sing it.
Yes, sir.
You hear the kora player, that's like this stringed instrument that is really the mother of the harp, and just the belaphone, which is like a marimba, a xylophone, but wooden
Yes,
keys.
sir.
It's a beautiful performance, but I remember this story she told. There was a king who had this great respect for this holy man, and he had heard about his reputation, and so this king invited this holy man to his palace to see him. So the holy man arrived at the designated time, but he had on some old clothes, all patched up. He goes to the gate, and the guards, they stop him, and he says, "I'm so and so and so, and I was invited by the king for dinner." And they looked him up and down and said, "Nah, you're not coming in here. Whoever you are, you ain't coming in here." And they sent him away. And so the king encounters the holy man again in the marketplace. And I said, "I gave you an invitation. What happened?" He said, "Well, I attempted to enter, but they wouldn't allow me to enter."
Mm.
King said, "Well, please come this evening." He said, okay, this time the holy man came and he put on his finest garment. And when he arrived, the guards didn't even ask. They just ushered him in.
Mm.
He sat down at the table. The food was served, and the holy man began to take the soup and the food and everything and just throw it on his clothes. And the king was like, what's going on? Honored one, why are you doing this in that fine garment? Is something wrong? He said, well, when I came the first time, I was judged by my garment. I come this time, I'm ushered in. So perhaps my garment needs something to eat, and because it's more important than me. We got to get beyond the surface and really see our people. The minister does. See, there's nothing I'm saying that like I thought of it.
Yes, sir.
I'm a student. And I watched that man in every kind of situation, from the poorest to the powerful.
Yes, sir.
But he loves our people. Can't nobody be driven like him. He's a man that had major organs removed from his abdominal area. In his 90s, there's nobody that lived in their 90s with that kind of operation he had and still serve.
Yes, sir.
There's got to be love there. That's a love that's unmatchable, man. Ain't none of us outworked or outloved him. I just think that's something to think about, bro.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't articulate
on that great
that.
Yes, sir. And on that great note, we have a brief 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. We're coming right back to our guest, our illustrious guest. Thank you very much, our minister, for the amazing information as well as inspiration. We are grateful for every like, share, and subscription, every Cash App, as well as every super chat. Thank you all very much. 1 second. If you need any of that, Sister Naima, Stay on Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Excellent. Thank you all. And if you all have any guest suggestions, by all means, please put those in the comments. Well, great. All right. Yes, sir. The next question we have is the fear. Have you ever been faced with fear, sir? And if so, how have you overcome fear?
Yeah, I've had fear many a day. It's okay, Tisha. Tisha, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've had fear on many an occasion. Generally, what happens when you're afraid of anything, you have that physiological response, whether your heart starts beating really fast, sometimes our legs move automatically. We think later. So,
yes,
yeah, I've had fear. But the only thing to do when afraid, you got two choices. It's fight or flight. Not necessarily a physical fight that's in front of you, but something that you have to confront, whether it's internal or external.
Yes, sir.
I think, too, that when you have folded and allowed fear to be the guiding force, that you don't feel so good. And sometimes Allah gives you a do-over. And it's not so much the ego. You gotta, again, that's where that faith comes in, and trust that Allah got your back. And sometimes we can wane in faith if we get away from prayers, if we get away from reflection, if we get away from even our ways of devotion. So there are things that, because you have a lot of people who never felt the kind of strength and fortitude until they embraced the guidance. And they had a good lieutenant, good squad leader, or just a good minister, or just good people around them that helped to bring out of them what was hidden under all of that years and years of ignorance, of of the knowledge of self, pain from upbringing, and so on, the beauty of Islam brings some things out of you. And when you realize that ultimately Allah is the final judge, and Allah is the best of knowers, and you're not going to, whatever the outcome, it's by Allah's active or permissive will. When you grow into that, then fear, when it comes, it doesn't mean you don't fear. But it's, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said when he encountered a situation where fear came up, but he fought through that fear and kept moving. He shared it with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, it's all right to be afraid,
Yes, sir.
but it's what you do after that that makes the difference. So you don't succumb to the fear. That's still something to do. You know, those people down there in Texas with the flooding, if you're just afraid, I mean, the body you still want to live. You're going to have to face your fear. If that means climbing on the roof, grabbing a table and flipping it over as a flotation device, we're all challenged daily with things where, well, what if I don't have no money? Well, what if I don't have this? You may suffer that lack, but you got to do something.
Beautiful. All praises due to Allah, and people are showing you love all around the world. Sister Tisha Muhammad says, all praises to Allah. Brother Demerick says, facts and teach, Brother Minister. And thank you to everybody who's watching. We want to know, sir, is you have a lot of children that we grew up, with each other. And
yeah, a whole bunch of them.
Yes, sir. I got to watch. We feel very connected to, my family feels very connected to your children, all of the nation babies around the world. What advice would you give to future fathers?
Patience. For Allah's sake, be patient. And your reward won't be coming first. It'll be coming later. I remember my children made me so angry, particularly the ones that were teenagers at the time. I think at one point I had 3 teenagers at once. And then I was sitting quietly one day. I was like, what was I thinking having them this close together? But and we were on our way to, I think, anniversary of the Million Man March event. I was trying to talk to my children. All of them was like having attitudes, and I lost it. I mean, I went off on them. I mean, I jammed them from stem to stern. Only a few weeks later to hear the minister say in a lecture, brothers, if you want your children to understand you, it'll be a long time before they understand what it is you do. Because to be a father is, it's to be a maintainer, but it's to be a protector, but it's also the one that enforces and imposes the law. Sometimes we're too heavy-handed, and we forget that our anger is not going to solve anything. And sometimes we have to put holy hands on holy backside, but in all reality, that's not as frequent as one may think if there's time given to discourse and interaction. Yes, sir. I remember one day I was driving, I was listening to a news report. In the report, they said the average man speaks to his children, I think it says like 15, for an entire month, like 15 minutes a month. I said, what are we saying to our children where it's only 15 minutes? Then it came to me. Did you take out the garbage? It's time to go to bed. All right, y'all, wake up. Okay, time to go. All right, you heard your mother say it's dinner time. Sit down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And even though, I worked in the ministry and I talked a lot, well, by the time you get home, you talked out and tapped out. So you have to carve out some time in your mind for your children where you're engaging them. They should hear your mind, not just your mouth, but your mind.
Yes, sir.
They need to get the benefit of how you think and how you see. You got to tell them things from your child. I can remember one of the best conversations I had with my oldest son. He and my daughter were graduating the same year because when they went to MUI, we had got to a point where we couldn't sustain 12th grade MUI, in Detroit. So I had to get my children in schools in the public system, but were as close to what I felt they were safe and they were okay. So my oldest son and my second oldest daughter, they were, I think, in their senior year at the same time. So uh, my daughter, when it was a little prom, I went the extra mile, sacrifice for this, that, and the other. But with my son, I was making him earn his own money. He was working with a brother who had a carpet cleaning company. He always had a good work ethic. So my oldest son, I would look at his face when he would ask me for this. And I was like, boy, just do this or that. Do it yourself. So we had this thing, we still do it at Mosque Number One, Man and Boys Day. We brothers go and bring their sons out and young men from the community. We go spend the day at the park and enjoy each other and all of that. So we were at the park and I took my son out. We got in a canoe and we went out in the middle of the lake. I said, I know you know that how I handled Akila, that's Aziz's sister, and how I did you for the prom and your senior stuff is different. He's like, yeah, it is. And I said, it's because I want her to know what she should expect from a man. And I'm trying to groom you to be the man that a woman would expect to be maintained by. His whole persona changed. His whole expression changed, and he understood. It's that kind of dynamic that as fathers, and then with the daughters, we got to engage them, not just tell them we don't like what they're wearing and cover your head up. And we got to talk to them. We got to engage them. They got to know who this person is with this, all these stress lines in his face that comes home and don't want to talk and zone out in front of the television or the computer for hours and then mumbles at the dinner table and goes to bed. They don't know who that dude is. They love him, but they sometimes are intimidated or even afraid of their father when they should be at ease about their father being present.
Beautiful teaching, bro. Makes all praises due to Allah. Yes, sir. And wow, that's great. And I'm glad that we love to hear these type of stories because please let your son know that I had a similar story. My prom, it was rough. It was rough. I wanted to use one of my father's car. I wanted to drive his car. And he was like, "Nah, you drive my car." He was like, "You, that's you." Like I was like, "Dad, no, I need that. You know what I'm saying? I need this. Like I be impressed this girl." And he wasn't going. I had to rise above emotion, get audited for that. You know, to get well, it took me a while to get over that because I was like in the car sitting there, like, let me just
Painful emotional engrams, my
wow.
dear.
Yes, sir. The next question that we have for you is, what do you do for fun when you're not studying and being studious and things very, very serious and building a nation? What do you do for fun, sir?
Well, I love music, and I
Okay,
love
okay,
music from um, every genre all over the world. So I'm always exploring old and new sounds.
okay.
And so that's one. I'm also a visual artist. Um, I've actually had a few exhibitions. I haven't exhibited in a gallery in a long time. I've been working digitally and taking digital images and reproducing them on silk. So that's
Okay.
kind of one of the things I've been doing of late. Love to take walks and uh, uh, love to indulge in good conversation. I consider myself something of a coffee snob, and I ain't talking Starbucks. I'm talking real coffee.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I like to cook, and
Okay.
I'm always exploring new dishes and how to eat to live is like the template or the base, and then I look at other cultures and other dishes, and I try and figure out, well, how can I make that within the framework of our dietary guidance? So that could be hummus made from navy beans. Who knows? I've even made navy bean tofu before. So
Okay. Now, what was the
I
response from that,
experiment,
sir?
huh?
What was the response from that? How did that turn out?
I done got all the responses from I don't know what dad was thinking. I need that to, oh, that's pretty good to, oh, that's
Okay.
really good. So that's the whole idea about experimentation. You keep experimenting till you get something about where you need it to be.
Praise be to Allah. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Another question we have, you mentioned earlier the Salam restaurant and you going there. How
Mhm.
important, and then someone in the comments mentioned the restaurant in Detroit. How important is it for us to have a do for self mindset and for you to actually, uh, ex, you know, prove that in Detroit, but see it as a nation in Chicago from my headquarters to see the restaurants and buying back the mosque and for you to experience and be there, how important is that? Was that for you, and how important is that for us to have that mindset in our individual cities?
Well, it's extremely important. I would just add this though: do for self. When we hear that, 9 times out of 10, we're thinking about the economic program or business or some economic dynamics. But the reality is, do for self is a all-encompassing dynamic. Do for self. Who is the self? Well, that's me. I gotta. If my teeth aren't brushed, I better brush them. My hair ain't combed, I better comb it. But that also means you got to really establish and maintain and take care of yourself, the whole being, though. Do for self emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Are you feeding yourself what it is you need for your emotional and psychological and physical well being? If you jog, it's not going to burn 1 calorie in my body.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
if
mm.
you can do crunches, your abs will be looking great while I'll still have Flab watching you saying, boy, he really moving with them crunches. So, do for self means that on the most intimate and microscopic to the larger expansive. Now, the minister told me that when he was the minister in Boston, the mosque didn't open up all those businesses. He said they inspired believers, and the believers were inspired by what they heard, and they went out and started opening up businesses in proximity to the mosque and so on. You have to inspire the believers to do for self and learn how to do for self. When
Yes,
so
sir.
we've been used to, I think it was Sister Minister Ava, our dear sister, the star of Islam, as the minister called her, our star. That sister said, we're so used to finishing things for white people. When it was harvest time, we was harvesting for white people. When it was time to pick cotton, we was picking cotton for white people. When it was time to put the cotton through the cotton gin and process it, we was processing it for white people. When it was time to slaughter the cattle, we were slaughtering cattle for white people, picking tobacco for white people. So we weren't used to finishing any task for ourselves. We would try and have a little garden out by the shack we were in, or we'd try and have a little of this or that for ourselves. We couldn't even have a marriage. We want our wife or husband could be sold off. So we started developing idea about lack and how anything that we have could be gone tomorrow. So there's a collective psychosis or neuroses. There are things we suffer from emotionally and psychologically where we believe it's safer to get a job. It's safer to have someone else worry about. I've heard Black people have had business say, I ain't never doing that again because it was so stressing. Well, that's the nature of business. I had a restaurant. I don't have one now, but that silk that I told you I have. Oh, I sell that stuff. I do like money. Yes, I have a job, but I'm always looking for other avenues to bring in resources.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yes, sir.
and it's perfectly fine to do so. I think one of the things we have to learn is that doing for self means survival.
Yes,
We
sir.
can give a long talk about the black dollar only turns over once in the community before it's gone, and it's true. But ultimately, if we don't do for self, we won't survive. Much of what we've been used to getting the benefit of, they're eliminating, they're taking away. What is this big, beautiful bill they're talking about? This is legislation that's just passed where they're cutting and they're going to keep cutting. They don't have any allegiance to black and brown people. And so if we don't think about ourselves, lastly, all those ethnic groups who come into America they come and they realize that the job market may not be there for them initially. So a lot of them come in and begin as merchants, and it's survival. So down there in Atlanta, you got a large Ethiopian population. You got some Chi. Do the Chinese folks still have the liquor stores down there? That was strange.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Detroit, that would be Chaldeans, which are Catholic folk who are Arab. They'll say they're not Arab, but they basically Catholic folk from the Middle East. Many of them own the liquor stores in Detroit.
Mm.
So you have these ethnic groups who come in. They ain't no smarter than you, but the one thing they have is they've come out of places where they used to trade and commerce amongst themselves, marketing amongst themselves, and they know that they're going to get some of their own people. If they want falafel and you used to falafel, well, they know they're not going to get falafel at McDonald's. So Hamid may have falafel, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
not McDonald's. You know, if you're Ethiopian, you might want some injera bread, but it's gonna be an Ethiopian making that injera bread. You know, if you're Indian, you might want a samosa, or you want
Yes,
some
sir.
Indian bhaji, but you're gonna look for an Indian or a Pakistani who makes that. You know, if you want a gyro or a gyro, you're gonna look for the Greek dude that makes that.
That's right. That's right.
I make pizza. That's kind of got commercial, but if you want lasagna or something, you're gonna look for Giuseppe and see if he's making lasagna because that's from the old country. That's what you're used to. When you got a people who have been stripped of name, language, culture, God, religion, then we have to rebuild culture, and out of that culture becomes a dependency on ourselves. And that's where do for self takes us. You ever look up that word self? It literally means same, S-A-M-E. So when you say do for self, do the same, meaning there's a sameness, there's a connectivity there, there's a continuity there amongst the people.
Yes, sir. Beautiful, Minister. Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. And people are bear witness and show love all around the world.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir. We want to thank you again, and inshallah, sir. I look forward to either. I don't really visit Detroit that much, but you said you'll be in Atlanta. I would love to interview you in person if that's possible as well.
We can make that happen.
Okay,
you
great.
Be here, or I'll be there. We'll figure it out.
Yes, sir. Well, Isha, I gotta put you. Last question. I put you on the hot seat, Minister. Is it possible for us to get a part 3? Because you did great, and we want to bring you back so we can get some more information and inspiration from you, sir.
Yes, sir. I don't know, something about you, Josh. You get yes out of me way too easy.
Well, praise be to Allah. But we truly appreciate you. We thank you. Thank your wife. Thank man, thank the city of Detroit. Thank you all for holding it down. And oh no, that's the last question I ask, because I always ask people that people
Yes,
who
sir.
are in like Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta as well, LA, New York, cities where, like you said, 5 locks on the doors and crime rate. What makes you never want to move away?
Huh. I ain't got the money to move it. No, I've thought about that, and it really money is a part of it. I wouldn't move away because it's so bad. I got to get out of Detroit. If I moved away, it's because there's something I like about that environment that has attracted me. I love, for instance, going up to Sedona in Arizona. I love that.
Okay, yes, sir.
If I could afford and had a place there, I would love to have it there because that's just a place that I absolutely enjoy. So things like that. But I'm here because this is where my roots are, but I'm not stuck here. I don't mind moving around. If the means are there and the opportunities are there, I'll seize it because I'll tell you, like brother Majid, you know, brother who's the former captain here in Detroit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When I was a young college student, I was home for the summer here in Detroit, and I said, I want to hurry up and finish so I can come back and help the nation. He said, young brother, wherever you are, the nation is. And that's something we should remember.
Beautiful. That's a fact. All praises due to Allah. Well, yes, sir. We look forward to part 3. And this has been great, sir. Once again, we salute you and your family. Thank you, everybody who's watching from all around the world. Walaikum salam. People said, teach that truth. Thank you, Issa Kari, and everybody who's watching. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off of the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Joshua.